Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I'm Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to episode 28. We have the follow-up to our Fitzgerald River National Park podcast from the previous episode. So we're going to be talking about the western side of the park now. And welcome back, Erika. How nice to have you in again.
I know. Thank you so much. I love it. It's becoming a bit of a habit, isn't it?
It's like
driving
you didn't leave.
Up here. It's like I didn't leave.
I think everyone can kind of figure out what's going on here. As we'll discuss the eastern side on the last pod, and I think we all agreed it was one of the best national parks in the States. And the theme, I think, continues as we head onto the western side. So, Donovan, this is one that you did in 2016.
That's correct, yeah.
And you went and did the longer Mamang Trail. So I guess we'll better start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what are your thoughts? And kind of let's run through some distances and logistics of getting down there.
So I think one of the things with the Mamang Trail is probably the lesser... It's like the poor cousin of the Hakea Trail. The Hakea Trail is famous for being, one of the top trails in the state. The Mamang Trail's the other overnight in the park, and it's less known. However, I will say that I think, if not for the fact that there's no water on the track, I think it is one of the best overnight trails in Western Australia. I think if you were new to hiking, you wanted a trail that wasn't too difficult, had a different return journey, because unlike the Hakea Trail, it is a circuit with a leg that goes to the campsite. It has everything that you would want in an overnight trail. I think it is really underrated. I think it is as worthy of being called a top trail, but it just isn't. And it has my absolute favorite beach in Australia that I've been to, because it is absolutely beautiful. And you can be the only person there. And you can't say that about a lot of spectacular beaches in this country.
I think to hark back to a point that you made on the Hike Your Own Hike, especially about the Northcliffe to Walpole section of the Vilman track, I think the Hakea Trail has the best walking, but I think the Mamang Trail has the best campsite and beach area that you can visit.
So you think the campsite on the Fitzgerald is better than...
Whalebone Beach?
Than Whalebone Beach.
I would say your favourite beach, which is not too far from the campsite, is a better place to rest in the afternoon than Whalebone. Cool. I know you're probably going to disagree with me.
No. I didn't go to the campsite. I did a loop on that trail, but I loved just arriving there. So coming up to the Great Southern Highway, so Route 120, is it? And coming off the little sign that says the Fitzgerald River National Park. And from the moment, a little bit into the park, this is end of December, so I really was expecting nothing. There's a 66-kilometre, quite corrugated and gravelly road to get to Point Anne, but which actually I spoke to the ranger yesterday, and it's been all flattened, so it's actually ready for people. So
that's
just so
good.
People out there know, it's not as it's quite drivable now, and on 2-wheel drive. But it took 2 hours to get down to Point Anne, 66 kilometres, because there were just so many flowers. I saw some bankses for the first time ever, the Lamania and the coccinea, and I mean just these ones that I'd only seen in books, and Kalani is another banksia that I saw there for the first time, and I remember because I looked them up, because I was so fascinated. So yeah, it was just like this wonderful welcome into the park, these 66 Ks. At first I thought, oh no, 66 Ks on this road, moving down, and then all the way down, just stopping to...
I did the same thing as you, because I looked at the map and I was like, oh yeah, there's the road going in.
Yeah.
But the road that's sealed...
Quist Road, isn't it? Quist Road.
Yeah, Quist Road. The road that is sealed, and probably the easier way to get to Point Anne, is you drive down towards Bremer Bay and then cut in. But I thought, oh yeah, I'll go that way. And it was heavily corrugated. It was like 20 Ks an hour of like boom, 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 boom. I was like, what? I've made a mistake here. I don't know how people drive into this park. And then I realised, oh, we're going the wrong way. But it was still, it's like it's a really lovely drive. But the bit that really wowed me and like I'm in love with Fitzgerald River from the first sight was as you drive over the hill and you get to see Point Anne, the bay, the Mid Barrens. It is just one of those moments in life where I just stopped the car and got out and just be like, just wow, like this is heaven.
We took the easier road because we came down on the Friday night. We stayed with Alyssa's parents in Denmark and we drove from Denmark. So that way we could break the drive down and have more time in the morning. So that road is really nice and you don't have the corrugations, but you still get that great wow moment where you come through and you see the, you know, St Marys and it was spectacular as you come down to the beach and you just go, as Mark says, you know, you go, wow, this is a great park.
And kind of Point Anne is the main location if you're going to stay, if you're car camping, because you've got St Marys Inlet not very far away.
Oh, that's the one that has 13. I think it has 13 or 12 slots, and then there's an extra one in there for camping. But it's rougher camping. Than the other side, the east side.
Oh, it's not too bad.
Oh, no,
there's, you know, a toilet block there and barbecues and everything.
Yeah, it's great.
And you've got the beach right there too, which I think 4 Mile Beach, as we talked about in the last pod, the beach access isn't as easy. Whereas St Marys Inlet, you literally just walk over a hill or a tiny dune and you're there. And you get the same amazing views. Which I found amazing that no one, like, there was probably about 6 or 7 people staying there that night. And we were the only ones at sunset and sunrise taking in what was the best sunset I've ever seen. It was just, baffling that people do that.
And I think what's great is when you get to the car park, which is the start of the Mamang Trail, and you're at Point Anne, like, just straight away, it's amazing. Like, there's that lookout that they have just at the beach there, and it's incredible. You see the Mid Mount Barrens from there, which are sort of, I think, the anchor of this walk. Like, they're the thing that you see the whole way through, and they're what draw you to the campground, which is, I think, was, you know, part of the idea was that this would be the focal point of the track.
And the facilities there are just amazing. Like, we talked about money being pumped into the eastern side. I mean, sure enough, it's not paved road all the way to Point Anne, but the facilities at Point Anne are amazing. Like, you've got barbecues, brand new toilet blocks, the car park's all paved, and you've got like a little Copacabana like hut thing.
There is,
And I took a photo, and you've got the Mid Barrens in the distance, the little bay and the turquoise water, and this little hut. I was like, you could put a beach bar here, and this would be, you know, a really cool spot. But sadly,
customers.
I don't think you'd be able to economically run that, which is a shame. But it'd be quite fun. And the Mamang Trail, the boards are really well laid out, and there's so much information. I think if they were a little bit smaller, people might miss them. But I think if you're a visitor there and you have no idea about it, you might go, I might return and do this walk and see what that's all about.
When we were there, they hadn't completed all of the signage, but when you were there, did they have all the signage in place yet?
At Point Anne, they did,
Yeah, because Point Anne had it, but did they have it further along the track?
Yes, because there was signage up around Nameless Lake.
Ah, okay, cool.
Telling you all about that. I think we forgot to mention this on the last pod, but the Hakea Trail when I was there in May didn't have any signage at all.
Oh, really?
And the guy who created the trail was really livid that they hadn't got that up yet, because they have the posts for it, and like it just looks like it's been sitting there for 20 years and the UV has got to it. There's nothing there, but they just haven't installed them yet. But in terms of the Mamang Trail, it's all there, and you get the history of the place and why it is called the Mamang Trail,
which is an Aboriginal word for whale, isn't it?
Yes.
Because that's where they come in, the
southern right whales and the humpbacks as well.
Because that particular viewpoint is one of the best places to see the whales.
That little wooden kind of outlook, and then they actually tell you the difference between the whales. So if you're spotting them from a distance, you can say, well, this has this marking, or the tail's like this, and you know exactly what it is. but we haven't seen any whales. I know, Erika, you haven't seen any
I
whales.
know,
Did
I
you?
haven't
Were
seen
you
any whales.
lucky
Not
enough, Don?
not in October. You
Yeah.
know, like wildflowers are amazing, but you're not going to see whales in October. So it's one of those things where you've got to trade off what you want to see. If you're there in the season when the whales are there, which is sort of more towards like August, I think.
I think it's June to October, like
Yeah.
early October, that they come out.
Yeah, so we were too late for it, but you know, these are the things you have to trade off. Do you want to see the whales? Do you want to see the wildflowers? And you can't always get everything. So yeah.
Yeah.
But the walking it's quite enjoyable. It's not the wow views that you get and the variety that you get on the Hakea Trail, but I suppose we'll go the inland section first because this is a loop trail.
Yes, I mean you start on the beach and then
you start
after
on the beach,
a
you
few
find the
kilometers,
marker.
Yeah.
you turn off.
Yeah.
And the beach exits are very clear here, which I think is a really good thing.
And straight away, end of December, all these grevilleas, little tiny delicate ones right there. Like sometimes you had to really look, and I am always really looking
Yeah.
to see little spots of colour. But yeah, I'm looking forward to being there next Saturday on that Mamang Trail.
Lucky
yeah,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the beach walking, it's not like it is compact beach for a little bit.
I think because it's that really super fine sand, it can really kind of compact nicely. So I found it quite easy going. And we were just in awe, you know, at how white the sand was. Like you could probably get the most bleached white paper and put it next to the sand, and the sand's probably whiter.
Yeah. And especially the contrast you get as well with the turquoise water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is
That's what's really striking is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
contrast, and with those black. What did you say in the last podcast? They're like
Star Wars
Destroy.
Yeah.
But these amazing, huge boulders, jagged on their side, you know, they just add this great structure and kind of architecture to
Yeah,
the
for
beach,
sure.
natural architecture to the landscape.
And you kind of pass St Marys Inlet, which you can camp at, which is a drive. But if you're doing the Mamang Trail, this is kind of a bit early to be camping. But yeah, you kind of look back, and I love this that the inlet, as you look inwards, frames West Mount Barren. And it's this tiny little speck, and there's this white kind of blown out area of the dunes there. It's kind of a cool photo opportunity in the afternoon. And then, yeah, the inland section, when you eventually get to it, got all the scrubbing stations and you head into the dunes.
That's
So
right.
they really do care about the biodiversity in this park, and they will. This side of the park is more prone to closures than the east side because of the gravel track. If it's raining a lot, they will just close the park,
Yep.
and so you might rock up and just go, "Oh, I was planning on doing this walk." Well, too bad for you, because the environment is more important sometimes than what we want to do, unfortunately, and the.
And there are plenty of other options if that was to happen. You know, you
exactly.
can just have a talk to the rangers, and they can, you know, they are so friendly. They are really well informed, and they know their stuff. You know, and ask them, oh, what's an alternative here, or just before in Bremer Bay or anywhere around there. I mean, the whole area is full of biodiversity. If you can't get down to the Mamang Trail, but there's always options.
Yeah, but a good tip is watch out for the weather if you're planning a trip, and maybe just call the ranger station and just see what the conditions are like, or even the road closures.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, they'll actually tell you. So we did that. We checked beforehand. We called the office, the local office for the BCA, to make sure that it was going to be open. They said, yeah, the rain is going to be nothing. That's fine. It's only if it's really heavy rain that they'll close. But something to keep in mind.
Yeah, 5 meals. 5 meals, they told me yesterday. Yeah. So if it's 5 meals or more, they close it. So.
Yeah, I suppose once you've got your boots on and scrubbed and everything, it's up to the Nyats lookout, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think what's really nice here is, you think inland, is it going to be exciting? Because sometimes with coastal walks, inland can be, can mean boring, but not at all here. Because if you see the wildflowers here, you'll understand that when you go to other places in Australia, they just don't compare to Fitzgerald River when it comes to wildflowers and biodiversity. And so when you're walking through the inland section, you're just constantly seeing things that you've never seen before. And as you start the walk, you'll say, oh, this looks nice. And then you get to the next bit, go, this is nice, but I haven't seen this before. And then you keep going, oh, I haven't seen this before. And that's basically your whole experience in the inland section. It's just, you'll never see wildflowers that are as alien. It's like an alien planet, this park, you
Well, they're
really
endemic, aren't they? They're nowhere else on the
Exactly.
planet, some of those, nowhere else on the planet. That's mind-blowing,
Yeah.
Nowhere else on the planet.
Yep. And you really, when you look at it, you think it's another world. It really is another world, because when explorers saw it, they called it the Barrens because they thought that it couldn't support any life. This looks terrible.
Yeah.
And yet it does. It supports so much life that can amazingly survive in terrible soils. And the terrible soils have created this world that is completely removed from the rest of the country.
And it is so hardy, because when I was there in over Easter and then again in May, like we'd had the driest summer and autumn. I think they were just waiting for rains, and these plants were still really hardy, and there were still flowers out. And I mean, some of the royal hakeas had turned black, which was a bit of a weird sight, but other ones were still blooming with colour, and it's just a credit to this area that it just adapted so well.
Yeah. So every year, in the second week of September, the Ravensthorpe Wildflower Show is an incredible display of named wildlife, perhaps the biggest in the world. People come from all over the world to experience this, and it's a tiny little town that just comes alive at this time of the year because of, the effort of the community to bring all these wildflowers together into one place, and a lot of them are picked from the west part of the park, as well as the east part of the park, and the ranges, and all throughout that area.
Yeah, it is just one of those areas that, like, you look at it and you think, oh yeah, there's not much there from a distance, but you get up close and you start looking at the details, and there's different wildflowers just kind of nestled in everywhere.
And also life. I mean, there are animals there. I don't know that much about them because they're harder to catch and harder to see. Insects and invertebrates, that are thriving there that don't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, certainly.
There's a little honey possum. Is it a honey possum?
Could be.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of beetles there that were quite unique, like a gold and black one. I just kind of hopped around. I was like, oh, click, click.
I think another thing that is really amazing about this inland section, and it's something that if you've been to, a lot of national parks in Western Australia, except for maybe Karajini and a handful of other ones, you can see the border of the national park, and you don't in Fitzgerald River. If you are if you're on the Mamang Trail looking out inland, north of the track, you don't get a sense that there's anything beyond the park, which is a really nice sensation. You don't see that a lot. In Stirling Range, you're on top of a mountain, you see the farmland beyond. If even in some of the other parks where they're quite wild, like even Walpole, Nonalup, you sometimes can see something beyond it. You don't have that experience at all in Fitzgerald River. It's just basically all wilderness, and that's amazing.
Although having said that, my first kind of awakening to Fitzgerald River was I have a book on the national parks of Australia, and Fitzgerald River is in there in WA, and I looked at it and I've gone, oh yeah, this is amazing. But then when I was actually there, it's a lot smaller than what I thought. It should be a lot bigger. Like driving in, you just see farmland. You're like, what are they doing? Like if it's this like well-renowned biodiversity hotspot, why is there so little of it in comparison to the surrounding farmlands? And that kind of bummed me out a little bit. But yeah, as you say, from the hiking trails, it is amazing just looking into the horizon and there being nothing but just scrubland and raw hakeas.
I mean, it's still 3,000 square kilometers, but I know what you're saying.
Like
it
what
still
would have
needs to be
existed,
bigger.
Yeah. Because that was the sad thing about visiting Esperance and the museum there, is they wiped out everything but 18% of the natural woodland. Just because I think one of the reasons was if you came over from the east, you had to clear an X percentage of land in order to keep it. And I was like, that is such a stupid way of doing things. And that's why everywhere around Esperance and the whole wheat belt is just cleared land.
Yep. Same with Rottnest.
Yeah.
You know, like imagine how much more beautiful it would be if it hadn't been all cut down.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we digress.
Yes, we do. The nuts lookout.
All around there's diversity as well, you know.
Yeah.
So the park is just one area of the Fitzgerald Biosphere, which is what's UNESCO listed.
Yeah.
You know, the whole area down there. Yeah. Including the Ravensthorpe Range and the...
Yeah. I mean, there's pockets around. It's just sad that they're pockets, not the majority. But yeah, we do digress.
And it is threatened as well. You know, that's why it's a hotspot. Is because it's untouched almost, but it is in danger, and there are rare and priority listed at the different levels of priority listed plants down there, which is what is being protected with all the things that are in place. Is to protect that, you know, these rare plants.
So the Noitsia Lookout is probably one of the first sort of major parts of the track. I mean, there is like a coastal lookout, but I remember the views not being amazing. But I remember the Noitsia Lookout.
Yeah, because we got there, and I mean, it is, the brochure maps it out, and you stop at these various locations. So you're never more than 4 or 5 k's away from something to stop at and look at. And this is the first one if you're heading from Point Anne. And we kind of got there and we're like, oh, what's a Nutsia? And then we're just like, oh, it's a Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a Nutsia floribunda.
Yeah. Which was sadly not in flower because it only comes out at Christmas. But it was, it's kind of cool to kind of, you know what it is and you can picture what it's going to be like. It's just not like that when you visit.
Yeah. I always think it's amazing that they are a mistletoe that blooms at Christmas on the other side of the planet.
In summer.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, how serendipitous that this plant that is symbolic of Christmas, a mistletoe, is a tree on the other side of the planet and it blooms at Christmas time. Amazing.
But I feel like they only named it because it blooms in Christmas.
That's right.
Yeah,
like the Christmas spider down south is actually the jewel spider. It just shows up around Christmas, and that's what they named it. Like, beautiful tree, and the lookout is amazing. Like this trail does not have a lot of shelter, but the seat is actually now right under the trees. Yeah. And you know, you kind of have to push a few branches away to sit down.
It was really hot, actually. There were sections where we got quite hot inland.
Being December, I imagine it would be terribly hot because there's no shelter on this track. And the next big, you get to the trail junction because this track is very well designed for you to go, oh, I've had enough, I want to go back. But once you get to the next trail junction, there's the Lake Nameless Lookout.
That's right.
And so I think an interesting thing about here is the history of the area. So there's all these inlets along the track and throughout the park. And so Lake Nameless was an inlet that closed up. So it was going to be, it used to flow into the ocean, but as the ocean levels or rainfall has dropped, it's now a lake. And, it's kind of cool to see. It's something different.
I thought there could have been a bit more imaginative thinking on the naming of it.
You say that.
And yes.
But we were talking to the ranger.
Yes.
And he said a lot of the places are just named through colloquialisms. Like, it's named Woody's Point because Woody used to go there, who was a local, and then the Governor General or someone would come in and say, well, what's that? And they're just like, there's so many places to name, they just didn't name them, and they're just like, well, that's Woody's Point because Woody used to go there and do things that I can't mention on the podcast. And they've got all these weird historical names that aren't, like, they're just, scallywag kind of stories from the locals. But yeah, this one, agreed. Kind of like some of the names around Australia where it's like Mount Hopeless or like really dull names for beautiful places.
Yeah.
But I suppose back in the day when this was first being, discovered by colonialists, that, it would be a little harsh and you kind of maybe get sick and tired of it if it was in the wrong season.
Yeah. And speaking of colonialists, an interesting feature of this particular track is the intercolonial telegraph line, which you can see along the track. And so just beyond there, you start seeing the poles of what used to be a telegraph line that stretched basically across the Nullarbor. And, I think that's a nice bit of history on the track. And, I mean, there is bits of this as well at Point Anne with the Heritage Trail there, where you can see the rabbit-proof fence.
Yeah.
So it's a nice touch that gives the track a bit more character than just being, through very beautiful wildflowers. There's also this history there as well.
I actually think that is a better lookout of Lake Nameless than the actual Lake Nameless lookout.
I agree. I think the intercolonial rest area is the best spot to stop for lunch.
Because I remember getting there and it wasn't marked on the brochure, and I stopped and I radioed the guy I was with, Michael. I was just like, I think this might be Lake Nameless Lookout, but I'm not sure. And then I kind of found a post and I was like, oh no, it's not it. And then we kept going. I was like, I wish I could have stayed there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and this is where you kind of snake in and around the valleys and kind of, just explore the area a little bit more. It's more inland than coastal views and lake views, and I imagine there would be quite a lot of wildflowers and interesting things to see if it wasn't the time I visited.
Yeah, because I found that after the intercolonial rest point, that's when we started really seeing a lot of the royal hakeas on this particular track, and they are a spectacular plant. I think that the colours, because they're not the flowers, they're the leaves, aren't they, that are the colours?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's flowering now. I saw flowers last week.
What do the flowers look like?
They're just
They're
like a hakea.
nuts, aren't they?
They're a little curly, furry, curly, like a hakea, like lots of hakea flowers, and they sit on the inside of the, and then inside in the middle there's like Sue Layton, who coordinates the Ravensthorpe, she's called it a pearl.
Oh, right.
Yeah, a pearl in the middle. So it's got this little white and then little flower.
Karis calls them traffic light bush kale. The royal hakeas.
Yeah. So you were saying in the last pod, you were saying that the leaves are the colour they are because of the poor quality of the soil.
That's right. Yeah, it's because they don't, the struggle that they go through to survive in that soil gives them that colour variation, and they're unique. I mean, all the plants are unique. And I said in the last podcast too that I think that's a really great analogy for the beauty in people, because I think that's what makes us all unique,
I think,
what we struggle.
Yeah, remarkably, they look a lot softer than they actually are. But they're
really
very
spiky
and hard and tough plants.
Oh, you don't want to fall on one of those. Like scratched. Yeah.
And I think they really are, the name Royal Hakea is 100% accurate, because when I see other hakeas, I always refer to them as non-royal hakeas. Because they are really the most regal of all the hakeas.
Yeah, they're named after the Queen.
And I think that was the story behind them, is the explorer who first walked into this area tried to send one back. And he's like, these are the most amazing colours and you'll love them. And because it was, back in ye olde times, it took forever to get back to the Queen. And by that time it was black. And just couldn't understand like what he was going on about. But yeah, it is definitely worthy of the name. And yeah, as we said in the last pod, just something that always sticks out and is really iconic with Fitzgerald River.
For sure.
There's also another hakea down there. It's called the cauliflower hakea. You know that one? It's got a little top. The sort of top of it, it's all a little white. I saw that for the first time. Oh, they're so beautiful. It's like the canopy of it, the top of it. So it's about a metre and a half, some a little bigger. But the top of it has got this white flower that sticks on the top of the, like a little hat.
And, cauliflower needs a bit of cheese on top.
Very nice.
Yeah. But as you said, you start getting into the royal hakeas, and it is the Royal Hakea Lookout, which comes up next.
Yep.
But I was expecting a little more royal hakea on this walk, and it is kind of confined to this little patch.
I agree, because it was like, this is the iconic thing about this park is the Royal Hakea, and then you see it there. And actually, I felt the bit leading up to the lookout had more hakeas than the Royal Hakea Lookout.
Hopefully people haven't been thieving them while they're there as a little souvenir. But I don't think that's the case. I think they would have just, we're coming up to this area, we'll just put a lookout here.
I think if you're a botanist, this is amazing.
Yeah. Lots of those clawflowers are endemic to the area as well as the.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through photos here in areas, picking up on everything.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you just learn little bit by little bit just by being there, I think, meeting people and people that are there that love it, they're so passionate about it and sort of, pick up this from someone and a little bit of this from someone else. Yeah.
And then from there, you start getting to Point Charles and the Point Charles Lookout, which to me is one of the most iconic.
We're forgetting the inlet lookout first.
Oh, yeah, true.
Because that is kind of, you've seen St Marys Inlet, but not really. You've seen it from the beach, and then this one is above, and you get to see the width of the Fitzgerald Inlet.
Yep.
And it was dry when I visited, so it's kind of had this little salty sheen all over it. But I imagine when you visited, it would have been quite full.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot more to it there, I guess, at the time, and it was good.
And then you get your first real views of the mid Barrens, which from the inland section you don't really get to see. You see them on the beach leading up from Point Anne, but then you kind of say goodbye, but then reconnect with them. And I think that's a good kind of introduction as you get to Point Charles.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things I'll say is that when the view down to Point Charles and looking across the mid Mount Barrens, I think is extremely similar to the view that you get from Mount Amos of Wineglass Bay in Fresnay National Park.
In Tasmania.
And Wineglass Bay, due to its fame and its popularity, is extremely busy. But on the day that we were there, and I think it's probably the case all the time, we were the only people there. And the fact that you get this amazing view and you can look around and there's no one else but you is really incredible.
Yeah.
And this comes to Donovan's favourite beach in the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us all about it.
Go on, Don.
So Fitzgerald Beach is my favourite beach in Australia, and that's including beaches that I've been to a lot of beaches in the southwest of Western Australia, which are amazing. Having been to, Fresnay National Park and other beaches in Tassie and Queensland. And really, this is, to me, the top of the pile. And that's just because where else are you going to find a beach that is bleach white, has calm waters, has amazing views of, small but decent mountains in the mid Mount Barrens, and you're the only people there?
With the potential for whales and dolphins.
Correct. So,
and with a bush behind you full of diverse wildflowers and plants and animals.
Exactly. If you can find a place that can tick all those boxes, I'm prepared to eat humble pie. But I love this beach so much because as Mark was commenting earlier before we recorded, that you can only get here by foot. You can't drive there. So there is effort to get there. Yeah. And the effort is amply rewarded by absolute beauty.
And I think knowing that as well enhances the experience.
Yep.
Because if you get to Point Charles and look out there and you don't see anyone down on the beach, this is effectively yours and your piece of the world for the night.
Yep.
And that, to me, we didn't camp there, but just thinking about it after I'd written up the post and all the photos, I was like, this is a place I want to come back to and spend days, which is kind of, it's not really feasible because there's no water, as we'll talk about later. But it is one of those places that if you pictured just a random beach in the world that you got deserted on, I think this is probably one that I would love to stay at.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just amazingly beautiful. And I think you got the better pictures out of the two because I had smog on my day.
Yeah.
And you better captured the turquoise nature of Point Charles Bay.
With clear skies, it's incredible. I think it's as good as Fresnay, and that's saying a lot. People always talk about that as being one of the best beaches in the world. This is as good, and no one knows about it. You can have it to yourself. And Alyssa and I went for a swim there, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful swimming. You know, calm, gentle waters, just that clarity that you don't get anywhere else. And I'll always think of this as one of the best beaches I've ever been to. And yeah, at that moment I was like, yeah, this is top 10 national parks in the country. And it hasn't changed. I've been to other states and I still think, yeah, this is top 10. Enough gushing. Let's go.
So Point Charles and Fitzgerald Beach isn't actually where you stay for the night. So you have to hike down from Point Charles onto the beach. And then you were, not unlucky, but you had to deal with the actual river flowing into the ocean and the inlet crossing, which can be an issue kind of, winter through spring.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that we could just walk straight across the beach and up to the orange marker leading you into the campsite. But yeah,
I really like crossing inlets. Like, I think because I've had a lot of positive experiences. You know, some people have had terrible experiences where they've found an inlet that was at flood and they got washed out to sea or something. But every single time I've had to cross an inlet, it's been relatively easy. And the rule of thumb is basically, if there's an inlet that's open, walk out to the ocean side. The water will push the sand up, so you'll have a bit of a bar to walk on. It was no more than ankle deep. I'm sorry, not ankle deep. It was no more than knee deep. And yeah, if it's just knee deep, it's easy. So we just took off our shoes, went around to the other side, and we were at the campsite, which is on the other end, which is more inland and sheltered.
It was probably about 1 kilometre from the inlet to the actual campsite, which you used to be able to drive into, and they've now, because of dieback reasons, shut it off completely, which I actually agree with, because once you're there and no one else is there, you get that sense of isolation. And I mean, over time it will degrade, and there is a toilet block there, which will now no longer be serviced. I'm not sure how they're going to deal with that in the future.
When I was there, it was full. So, good luck.
Yeah, I didn't need to go when I went, but the one thing I did actually enjoy... So there are some
people do go there.
Yeah.
So if that toilet, that shows that, it is used, and some people do know about it, and sometimes the blessing is that not many people know about it, and that's what keeps it alive and protected.
Yeah. I mean, there used to be a barbecue facility there, and that all the gas and cooking elements of that have been removed, and it's just a shell. But the actual toilet block, I really enjoyed. I didn't actually need to go, but the door is just a really solid wood door. It had the most amazing colours on it, and this little kind of, I don't know, like kitschy hand-carved candle. I don't know why I found that amazing, but yeah. In and amongst the salmon gums, it is a lovely campsite.
It is, yeah.
Hopefully it gets a little more reclaimed by nature and a little wilder. But yeah, right on the Fitzgerald River, just amazing spot. And you actually camped there. What was it like camping there?
Oh, fantastic. We were, the only people there. And sometimes we heard animals and we thought, there's someone around the corner. But they weren't. And... I hadn't had that experience in a long time. When at that stage we were in the middle of doing a lot of Bibbulmun track hiking, and every campsite we ran into someone, and this was just really wilderness, and that's something you don't experience a lot. So I really cherish that experience.
Yeah. And I think that's what I like that about the national park, is that you go in it and you do experience that feeling of, being remote and away and really, really immersed in nature and in wilderness, it's difficult to get that anywhere. Australia has lots of spots where you can experience that, and we're really lucky, but to only have to drive 6 hours to get that kind of feeling, and it's
and I think drawing on the point that you made, especially with the overland and the walls of Jerusalem, is this part, there's only really one road that you cross on the Mamang Trail, and I think we don't get that in WA a whole lot, where you don't see roads of any kind. And I think this is what makes this hike in WA, I think, unique. It does give you that more wilderness experience, because for a very long time you don't see any sign of man.
Yeah.
at all, apart from the platforms that they've gone and put in as lookouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
'Cause
women.
you can suspend your disbelief that there's anything beyond.
Yeah.
You know, you can just say this is all that the world is, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it different, and especially with WA hikes like the Billman, you're always next to a road or a farm or something like that, whereas here, as you said, it's endless horizon, and you could never know that the park doesn't go on forever like it used to. So the Mamang as an overnight trail, this is where you would camp. It really is the only camping spot. Unfortunately, there's no water tanks at the campsite.
That's a real shame, because both it makes this track less attractive to casual hikers, in spite of the fact I think this is a great overnight hike if someone's just moving into overnights. And also it means that it's very difficult if you are a hardy hiker who wants to do a multi-day through the park. It does prevent you from doing that, really, I think, because it means that you have to carry a lot of water. So, I mean, that's a good thing in the sense that it means it keeps people out of the wilderness section. But it's also a bad thing because if you are someone who's hardy and knows what they're doing, it's very difficult to keep going.
And having it so exposed over the whole trip is you don't have that shade or that coolness to keep you sweating less and consuming less water.
Yeah, you need water on it. Yeah, it gets hot.
Yeah, ideally you'd probably only really do this in winter or early spring if you were going to walk all the way through.
Yep, for sure.
So moving on to day 2, because this is kind of a reverse tadpole as we discussed before the pod started, where you do a loop section from the start, but then there is a little tadpole section, skinny section from the campsite to Point Charles. So you climb back up to Point Charles, get that lookout view, you say goodbye to your favourite beach in the world. Was that a teary experience, Don?
Yeah, it was, because I was like, when am I going to get back to here? For sure. So
and then there is a little bench, and it is well marked where the turnoff is. If you want to go back via the same route, you can, or there is a shorter option where you go via the beach, which is, I think, a very pretty option.
Yeah. So I mean, it's 15K is taking the inland route, or it's 12K is doing the return route via the beaches. So the trade-off is less kilometers, but it's 12K. It's like a lot of beach walking. But I think it's worth doing because of the coastal formations. Like, we were talking about the crashed Star Wars spaceships. What I thought was it looked like they were daggers from like a giant's, a race of giants that lived in primordial times, who left their weapons on the beaches.
So we've gone either side. Thousands of years before now and thousands of years in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
I found the walk along the beach really, really easy. It was really flat and compact. So it was firm, and it just, the breeze was coming in, and it was just beautiful walk along the beach, because usually beach walks can be okay, it's hard work, it's a bit of a slog. I love them, but it's work. This was very pleasant strolling. I mean, at times it got a little bit sandy, but generally it was
This is coming from someone who has experienced a lot of beach walking in the Cape to Cape.
Yeah. So no, I found it really, it's a bit, Redgate, a bit like Redgate, where it's kind of flat and compact and firm.
But long.
But long. Yeah.
And I think the difference here is because of the way it's on the southeast coast, is it's not facing directly into the roaring 40s.
Exactly.
You're kind of sheltered a little bit.
Yeah.
And especially as you get closer to Point Anne, which is even more sheltered, it's just a beautiful beach walk. Like, those are the days in summer down at Port Beach when there's no wind and it's just flat and it's hard beach walking. That's what it reminded me of.
I don't know about the water, like you're saying that it was warm or it was I don't know, that water's cold. It's cold. Cold.
When did you go? You were
October.
So
it's cold.
That would have come off the wind, so it's not exactly the warmest part of the year.
It wasn't. I just found it really pleasant. It wasn't. It wasn't like, obviously.
That's what love feels like.
You're not going to be. It's not as warm as the when you're in the tropics, if you're like in Queensland and swimming in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's not
Granted.
it's not Cable Beach.
But
Yeah,
it's lovely swimming.
Yeah, yeah.
But
in spite of it.
October in Perth, like, it's literally breathtaking sometimes wandering into the ocean. Was it like that, or was it not too bad?
No, I found it all right. I found
Yeah.
it quite okay. Maybe because the UV was quite high and
Yeah. But you went swimming in Karajini quite a lot
We-
in some of the colder parts.
Sorry.
That's breathtaking.
Yeah, that's
What
breathtaking.
was high? Who was high? What?
The
The
UV.
UV.
No. Yeah.
Oh,
Don was not high.
I was high on nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. That I never got to the campground to that beach. Just did the loop.
I think one of the cool things as well is that when you do this beach section, you see different wildflowers. So you see the coastal wildflowers that only grow in the sandy soil, and that's different. So like it's a nice way to see a very different side to the park. So we saw wildflowers that were only on the beach bits, and if you're going there specifically just for a botanical trip, this is a nice other side to see of the park.
Mm. And easily, I mean, you might see people, but it is a beach you can drive down via full drive. The access at St Marys is you just drive over a little dune and you're on the beach. And I didn't do the return loop via the beach, but as we came out near Point Anne, there was just a couple sitting. One guy was fishing, the wife was sitting on a beach, captain's chair thing. And it was just a pleasant place to be. Whether you're walking or you're full driving, it's just an amazing part of the world where you probably won't see another person. I think they were quite surprised that people popped out of the bush with backpacks on and other things.
Well, when I was there in December, every campsite was full.
Really?
And so I ended up, because I knew we were just going to get up and go walking the next day, we just camped under a paper bark by the inlet. Yeah, and then just kind of got up really early and left, for the hike.
Yeah.
But it was full, and it was just really pleasant.
Yeah.
I think it attracts people that really want to get away from phones and that noise of the city, and just and lots of kids running around on their push bikes and free, roaming everywhere. So it was,
Definitely when we were there, because we're only staying there the one night, or the 2 nights. And then I was just like, this is just amazing. Like, I would love to come down here for a whole week.
Oh, yeah.
And your whole week will just be, I'm going to the beach today, and then I'm going to the beach today, and I'm going to do some walking, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else for you to do but just relax. And you're at literally the end of the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, beyond the Mamang Trail, which I guess is the main feature of this part of the park, there are some day walks there.
Yeah.
And you've done a few of them, haven't you, Mark?
Yeah, so this part of the park has technically 3, but I think only 2 are worth talking about, which is West Mount Barren and the Point Anne Heritage Trail. So I guess we'll start with the Point Anne Heritage Trail, which is just a little 1 kilometre loop around from the car park at Point Anne. It takes you to the end of Point Anne, which is a great, again, spot to see the whales. And also a little bit of history, as you discussed, on with the rabbit-proof fence and
That's
the telegraph
right, yeah.
pole, which there's still remnants of there, and there's all signs saying, picture yourself as a settler and having to construct this. It was quite interesting. And again, gives you great views of the bay, gives you great views of the Barrens. It's just, a nice introduction to the park, which is what we experienced it as, being in the afternoon. Unfortunately, no whales for us. But there was a guy fishing down on the rocks, and he was fun to watch. And it's just, it's not a very technical trail, but it is like rocky, and you get to explore the area quite a bit. And it is, right next to the campsite as well. So it is accessible to anyone staying at St Marys. And then we get on to West Mount Barren. And
Tell us about it.
Tell us, because you haven't done this
no,
one. I'm surprised.
I haven't. No,
Yeah, neither have
didn't
I.
have time. Just didn't have time that time.
So you say the Mamang Trail is the poorer cousin of the Hakea Trail. I think West Mount Barren kind of has that feel as well compared to East Mount Barren. It is very not one-dimensional, but you kind of know what to expect from the get-go. You kind of walk up the side of a ridge and then turn right, and then you basically walk to the summit. I mean, it does provide great views back towards Bremer Bay, and you'd see a lot more than you wouldn't see at East Mount Barren. But in terms of the actual hike, it is... I mean, it's... I don't know. It's kind of like a few in the Stirling Range where it's kind of up to the summit and then that's it.
I remember thinking it looked like a poor cousin of the Stirling Range walk.
It is kind of like that. I'm trying to think of
you guys like comparing everything.
Oh, it's what Don does. He gets links back to his other pages. And I've started copying.
There are, from what I was reading, I think there are some species that are endemic to just that area too. Sometimes it's just like in a few meter square of area that something grows.
Well, because it is, I mean, it is the same national park, but it is 100 k's away.
Yeah,
also
that's right.
From, well, probably less than that, from the East Mount Barren. So you would get your own species, and there are the mid Barrens to block it off. I'm just trying to run through, but yeah, definitely while we were there the second time for the Google trip, I noticed a lot more wildflowers, and we had a lot of time that day, so we were like going off trail a little bit and snapping and having a look at what we could find. But the views from the top of West Mount Barren are quite nice because there's I think it's called Mount Bland or Bland Hill or something, just off to the east. And I was like, what a terrible, terrible name, because when I first went there over Easter, it was really dark and gloomy, and it had a nice feel to it. And I was like, if you're just going to call that Mount Bland, what a waste of a name.
Yeah.
It's a great hike, and if you're in the area, you may as well do it.
Yeah.
And as I said, great views of the ocean and back towards Point Anne.
What was the road to get there like?
Pretty much the same as the gravel road into Point Anne.
So quite corrugated, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't easy.
But that's not corrugated now; it's been flattened.
Yeah.
So what do you call that? Grader? Grader.
Yeah, the grader.
The grader. They've taken the grader through both roads, so.
Awesome.
Rest assured, everyone at the moment it is flat and drivable.
If you go in the next few weeks, it'll be fine until the rains come again, or the caravanners. I think the caravanners ruin those roads because they drive a lot slower and they're a lot heavier. But anyway, the road in there is doable, and I had an X trail and I was fine going 60 k's an hour. Highly recommended you visit all the walks in the area. Even Mount Maxwell, the very, very, very poor, socially awkward, just weird cousin of the park.
Yep.
Because it's only, I think, 100 meters or so, and it's, I think, even overstating of the 100 meters. It's literally you park, walk, and then there's a little platform, and then that's it. And the views aren't even that great. I think it was just I don't know, another walk that they wanted to tack onto the park.
Yep. Just so they could say, oh, we've got another trail.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure at sunset it would be amazing because you get views over the plains and towards West Mount Barren and the bay. But yeah, it was not worth the slight detour off the main road to get there.
Yeah. There's quite a lovely view actually on that dirt track that comes off the Great Southern Highway the 66k one towards Point Anne, where you sort of one of the sort of curves that it makes. You can see the red dirt road. And then to the right is West Mount Barren, and to the left is all the hakias and all the royal hakias and all the trees. It's actually quite a beautiful landscape photo. I've got a nice panorama photo of that.
There's bits on that road where it kind of rises and you're like, oh, the trail, the road quality is getting a little bit better, and as you say, great views. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the west compared to the east is not as good, but it's still a lot better than a lot of places in WA, and it's still well worth a visit as well.
I think it's probably more like from the geology point of view, probably from a botanical point of view. It's much of
you're still going to get an amazing selection of wildflowers no matter where you go. And Bremer Bay as well is also
Block your ears, botanists out there.
And Bremer Bay is also home to the killer whale tours as well, and that's where they derive a lot of their income. So there's a lot of boating tours going off the coast where you can see the orcas.
It's definitely a jewel. of a national park. The
It
whole
is.
thing, you know, we are just really gifted
Yeah.
of a place where we can go and experience evolution, the isolated evolution of plant species, like nowhere else on the planet. You know, I think that's just a real privilege.
Luxury,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want to shout from the rooftops, like, go visit this place, and
Oh,
you need
yeah.
to go. But then sometimes you're like, well, I'd rather it stay a little bit quieter and not be as exposed.
Yeah.
Like, let the visitors go to Lucky Bay and, you know, the Stirling Ranges, and let them experience what is still a very good national park, but
Yeah.
leave Fitzgerald River for those who would really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. I think for me, this is up there with sort of Karajini as one of the most unique and iconic Western Australian national parks. Even if it's not recognised as that, that's cool, as you say. You know, for the hardy few who make it out there, you'll see why.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I also agree. Go visit Fitzgerald National Park, but don't ruin it.
Yeah. And also the surrounding areas, you know, just
Yeah,
the,
because
the you know
the
the
towns, like, you have to drive around the park. There's
yeah.
no driving through it, so
Yeah.
you have to experience the towns, and the towns are lovely. Like, they've
Yeah.
got character and history, and
Yeah, and Ravensthorpe. I mean, the Ravensthorpe Range is another place with rare and priority listed plants. You know, really unique.
yeah.
Unique.
And there's a great coffee shop in Ravensthorpe, and they've got this little garden as you sit outside, and you can overlook the Ravensthorpe Range. And I just sat there and I was like, this is actually a town I could live in. It's very chill, very relaxed. Yeah, I love it there. And of course, like, you know, the WA economy, like, it's centred in Perth, but there's all these local towns that need tourism and need support. So
Yeah.
it's great to contribute to that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, it's also got a lot of mining. So
But yeah, but I
That's-
mean, the more that tourism they get, the more they don't have to rely on mining, which, you know,
Yeah.
is a bit of a double-edged sword in WA.
So that's the western side of Fitzgerald River National Park as part of this two-parter. I hope this has been a more digestible division of the park rather than a full-on
Yeah.
episode. So thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions or any suggestions for future pods, please email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com and give us a rating on iTunes if you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah. And thanks very much for Erika for coming in. You've been an invaluable resource with your wildflower knowledge.
oh gosh, I don't know anything at all. Really,
No, you
I'm
know all the
just
names.
a little Bambi.
No, you are
Better than us.
a lot better than us. And if you're ever interested in going on a tour down to Fitzgerald River National Park, or you want to experience the wildflowers for yourself, definitely give Erika a call. She runs the company Edgewalkers and
Thank
runs some
you.
great tours down there.
Thank
so
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
personalised, one-on-one, great experiences.
Yeah, and we can both learn together.
Exactly.
So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.